Something amazing is about to happen. Listen, this story is incredible. A new teacher comes into the class. Suddenly, someone puts a rope in his way. He trips. Then a student comes up and says, "Do you want me to throw this glass in your face?" The teacher slowly gets up, looks at him with a slight smile and says, "Look, if you throw that glass of water in my face, it means I deserve to get that glass of water in my face. The question is, do you want to be the one sent to do it?" Do you want to choose evil or do you want to choose good? That's the question. If you throw it at me, it's certain that I deserve to receive it. The question is, who is the one sent to do it? The class is silent. That day, the teacher taught them something incredible. Now, I want us to go back more than 2,000 years in history. Listen, it's amazing. To understand what is going to happen in a few days, you have to understand the context of what I'm going to explain to you. Incredible, amazing. Listen carefully. More than 2,000 years ago, during the Persian Empire, the people of Israel were exiled after the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. We spent 70 years in exile in Persia. Think of an impressive empire. King Ahasuerus in Hebrew, Asuero in Spanish, ruled at that time. And basically, the people of Israel were scattered. And this King Ahasuerus, Asuero, ruled over 127 countries. I mean, imagine an empire, the most important empire, an impressive power, and this king decides to adopt a policy, a very interesting policy of conquest in all the countries over which he ruled, which was basically to be totally universalist and basically accept the customs of each of the peoples he ruled. For example, what did he do? In the third year after conquering, or rather after coming to power, basically what he did was throw a party that lasted no less than 180 days. 180 days. 180 days of celebration for his reign. This was 3 years after he began his reign. And what did he do? Look, the policy he adopted was impressive. Basically, each day was a special day in which a different people he ruled over would come. And basically what they did was show what their language was, what their foods were. And he would dress up, he would dress in the clothes. Surely, I don't know if in every case, but basically he would dress in the clothes of the people he had conquered. And in that way, he won them over. So to speak, basically he didn't have to use a heavy hand. But basically what he told them was, you can speak your language, you can be who you are. The only thing you have to accept is the yoke of my reign. Now, what happened with the people of Israel? What happened? The people of Israel, in some way, think about it, 70 years after the destruction of the temple. And we know for the blessing of the whole world that our place obviously is in Israel, with the temple in Jerusalem, that we are a light to the nations. Obviously, that is the idea and the goal of the people of Israel who are in Israel, for the blessing of everyone, or lagoyim, that we may be blessings, that we may be a blessing and a light to the nations. That is the great goal. But what happened? Unfortunately, everything was very comfortable. In a way, Ahasuerus said to us, you can speak. You can speak Hebrew, you can keep your customs, you can do whatever you want, but basically, forget about your submission to life. In some way, that was the subtext, as they say in English, the sub, what's behind, what's hidden behind the lines, which is, be subject to my rule, speak Hebrew, you can pray, you can have your synagogue, but don't make too much noise. Avoid discussing Israel or the synagogue. Don't talk about the Holy Temple. Don't talk about having a real universal mission. Not like me, Asuero, who has a universalist policy. But the goal was, it wasn't out of pure kindness. His goal was basically to keep all the nations he ruled under his control. It was a goal, it was a tactic, it wasn't just for the fun of it, as the saying goes. But what happened? The people of Israel, think about it, the people of Israel are the people of God, and we have such a truly universal mission in the world, which in some way we started to forget. The years went by, and in a way we started to forget. We started to forget, and that was very dangerous for the repair of the world. As we've said, when the people of Israel expressed their desire to return to the land, a prophecy now being fulfilled, millions are returning to Israel, thank God. But we must know that when the people of Israel are not in their land and do not fulfill their role, that is dangerous for tikkun olam, for the repair of the world. So obviously every individual, whether Jewish or not, man or woman, we all have our mission. But on the level of a nation, for the people of Israel, obviously, our place is to be in the land of Israel with the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, as it should be. So then what happened? What happened? Listen, it's impressive. What will happen in a few days? It's important you understand this now so you can connect it to what will happen soon. What happened? Basically, Hashverosh had as his commander-in-chief of the forces, like what would be the KGB in Russia or the FBI in the United States, basically the governor. And as ruler at the level of the secret police, he had an evil man named Haman. Haman came from Amalek, from a fiercely anti-Semitic people. Basically, an anti-Semite in every sense of the word. He absolutely hated the Jews, and basically Haman. Haman convinced Ahasuerus that there was a people, but he didn't really give him many details. He didn't give him many details. He told him there's a people scattered throughout the 127 countries, that you rule, who basically have their own laws, and basically they're dangerous. We need to take care of them. We need to take care of them. He gave him hints. In short, his goal was that God would allow us to eliminate the people of Israel. He was a very mystical person. Haman was a very mystical person. And basically the usual things like lobbying or political matters didn't work with him. And what happened? Basically, he did some kind of mystical lottery, and it came out as the 13th day of the month of Adar. And this is connected to what will happen in the coming days. I'll tell you about it. Still, everything I'm telling you, you have to pay very close attention, be very attentive, because you'll have to connect the dots to understand on a deeper level what will happen in the next few days. Listen carefully. It's impressive. The 13th day of the month of Adar will be the day on which, in the 127 countries, forces of Haman's secret police, and therefore of King Ahasuerus, and anyone who wants to join them, will be able to freely attack the people of Israel. And this was sealed with the seal of Ahasuerus. Why? Ahasuerus basically gave him the ring. He gave it to Haman and told him, do whatever you want. What does the ring mean? It's the seal to basically authorize all kinds of decrees like this one. Ahasuerus was very smart. He basically didn't listen to many details, but he said, well, take care of it, take care of it. And in fact, Haman told him, and if you want, I can. He was a very rich man, Haman, very rich, maybe one of the richest in the world. He said, I can even give you millions to take care of it. To take care of this matter. Basically, as they say in Hebrew, alai. At my expense, it's on me to take care of it, even on a material level, to put millions in your coffers to take care of this matter, of these scattered people dangerous for your reign. Very well. This was left hanging. There were still 11 months left before this decree. Now, what happened? I'm going to tell you all kinds of things so you understand what the story is. Where is what I'm telling you written? In the Megillat Esther. Megillat Esther. Megillat Esther is a sacred book of the Tanakh, of the Torah, one of the 24 books of the Tanakh. It's sacred, with divine inspiration, obviously. And in the Megillat Esther, it's the scroll of Esther, which is what I'm telling you now. Everything I'm telling you is written there. Obviously, I'm telling you everything in my own words. But I hope I'm being pretty faithful to the facts. But basically, that's where the facts of what I'm telling you are. Now, very well, very well. At one point, at this party I told you about that lasted 180 days, Ahasuerus was drunk, intoxicated. He called Queen Vashti, who was the queen at that time, to come and dance in front of everyone, with very little clothing, basically. And she said, I'm not going to go. It's not honorable for me. In short, he was drunk. And Haman obviously convinced him to take care of her. Apparently Haman killed her, or sent someone to kill her. He made Vashti, that queen, disappear. And Haman convinced Ahasuerus, the king, to send a letter to the 120 countries, an official royal letter, in which whatever the man says at home is done. The man is above the woman. Now think about it. The 127 countries received that letter. They said it wasn't clear whether the man had to rule at home. What is all this about? It wasn't well understood. Therefore, people started to doubt. Haman, Ahasuerus, is this person someone serious or not someone serious? Very well, that was left there. Then he sent a second set of letters. The second letter was about the 13th day of Adar. The 13th day of Adar. He also sent hidden letters to 75 to 70. Listen carefully. 75,000 commanders, which would be like in Nazi Germany, of the SS, of Haman's secret police. 75,000 SS officers of Haman. I mean, to understand on a conceptual level. He received secret letters about all the plans, about the plan for the 13th of Adar that was being planned against the people of Israel. And letters also reached the people saying that on the 13th of Adar they could attack the Jews. But obviously at first everything was kept very, very secret. But thanks to God, Mordecai, who was a righteous person, an impressive figure for the people of Israel, very close to King Ahasuerus, found out about what was being planned. And later on, these are all events, as you can see, political events. One thing leads to another. In fact, what I'm telling you, you'll see that there are many events. In a few moments, you will understand the whole picture and how everything fits together. What is going to happen in just a few days? Listen carefully. As we said, Vashti is removed from her position. Apparently, they make her disappear, and King Ahasuerus wants to have a new queen. In short, they bring many women from everywhere. Think about it. 127 countries of the kingdom, and it was like the local Miss Universe pageant to be the future queen. In short, here I'm giving you a very brief summary of everything. They forcibly take Esther out. Esther, who was the one. A girl who Mordecai, who was basically her uncle, raised. He basically brought her up. And they forcibly take her from her home and take her to the palace. And basically, she was abducted. Obviously, and in short, to sum it up for you, Ahasuerus wanted to marry Esther, and therefore Esther suddenly became queen. Obviously against her will, unlike many other girls who wanted to be queens. Obviously, that was not what Esther wanted. She wanted to have a life as a Jewish woman, to marry someone that Mordecai, obviously, who was like her father, would have chosen for her, someone according to the obvious values. She was taken by force, brought to a king, who, in short, to sum it up for you, she, suddenly Esther is Queen Esther, against her will, as we said, and several years. She didn't understand why God put her in that place. She didn't understand. But, well, she was being held captive in that palace. And, well, in short, I'll sum it all up for you. Suddenly, Mordecai tells Esther, who, as we said, is like his daughter in a way, since he raised her. And he tells her what the plans are, and he tells her, and now I'm going to connect this with the first story I told you about the teacher, and I'd like you to tell me in the comments what you understood, what the connection is. He said this, he said, Esther, maybe because of this, or surely, I'm saying it in my own words, surely because of this, you are in this place. You have to know that God will surely save the people of Israel. The question is, do you want to be the one who saves them? Today you are in a place of great power. You are the queen, you hold a very high position, you are the queen. The question is, do you really want to risk your life and save your people? It really meant risking your life. Esther explains that for, if I remember correctly, about a whole month, the king hadn't called for her. and somehow to show up without being invited. It's dangerous. It's a life-threatening danger. The king has to call for her and everything. There are processes and procedures. In short, Esther risks her life. Esther risks her life. You have to see that Haman, this man who hated the people of Israel so much, and the only person who didn't bow down to him was Mordecai. And that's what Haman said. Everything I have, he had millions, as we said. He was a very rich man. The fact that a Jew doesn't bow down before me, none of it is worth anything to me. He had a metaphysical hatred toward the people of Israel. As we said, he comes from Amalek, a hatred that goes back to the Exodus from Egypt. It's Amalek. It's a people that hates the people of Israel. It's anti-Semitic in a very strong way. Well, in short, Esther develops ideas, and in some way she obviously asks God for help. And different events happen through which Ahasuerus. The king thinks that Haman wants to sabotage him, wants to rule over him, wants to kill him. And he says, maybe Haman is with Esther the queen, and Esther says, I want to prepare a banquet so that the king and Haman can come with me. And Ahasuerus says, Haman and I, what does this have to do with anything? Obviously, Esther doing this knew she was risking her life because Esther was very intelligent and Ahasuerus was very intelligent too. And the king said that she wants to make a banquet with me since I am her husband. And Haman, who is like my chief of police, what does he have to do with it? If I want to have a banquet with you, king, and with Haman, in short, Ahasuerus already thinks there is a plot against him by Haman and Esther. And Haman was at the top, at the very top, at the peak. And listen carefully to what is going to happen in a few days. Listen. And now we are going to connect all the dots, God willing. Listen. The next day, this banquet was going to take place. And Ahasuerus, the king, couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep. He said, there's a plot here. He couldn't sleep. And he asked for the book of remembrances to be brought to him, the Sefer Zephyros and Chronicles in Hebrew, the remembrances of the kingdom. Interesting things that happen suddenly. They read to him. He listens attentively. That a few years ago, there were two people very close to him, to the king, who were like his guards, his bodyguards, who wanted to kill him. They spoke the language that they knew between them. But Mordecai the Jew, who knew many languages, was an incredible wise man, had divine inspiration, understood the language. And obviously, out of loyalty to the king, he warned that the king's two bodyguards wanted to kill him. Therefore, they saved the king's life. And the king asks, and Mordecai, was he given any honor? Did they help him in any way? Did they do anything for him, right? No, nothing was done. Nothing was done for him. Something must be done for him. In short, the next day or well later, Haman arrives and the king says to him, look, what can I do for someone I want to honor and I want to help him and give him honors for a favor he did for me? Haman said, obviously he's talking about me. So he said to him, well, you have to take him out on the royal horse, and someone very, very close to you should say this. He is given the honor, the one who does the honor for the king, and he takes him through the streets of the city and through the capital and gives him honors. And he says, perfect, everything you said, do it for Mordecai the Jew, Mordecai the Jew. Haman's face fell, his face turns pale. And there he understood, as we said, he was someone very metaphysical. He understood that destiny was no longer with him. What he called destiny, obviously God, obviously the creator was not with him. We know that. I don't think he said God. Now what happened? From then on, Haman started to fall. In fact, Haman asked them to build a giant wooden gallows to hang Mordecai. And listen to this. Impressive. And Haman went through the streets with Mordecai, as we said, on a horse. Impressive. And obviously the honor of the Jews started to rise slowly through Mordecai. Haman began to fall. And what happened? The next day at the banquet, Haman begins to beg Esther. Why? Because Esther says, Haman, he wants to kill my people and me. He wants to murder us, eliminate us. But how is that? Asks Ahasuerus. The king said, as if he didn't understand. No, he didn't remember what he had decreed some time ago, but how? And he went out angrily to the garden, and Haman begged Esther, please. At the moment he begged her, he fell onto Esther's couch. The king came in and said, oh, do you still want to assault the queen? Not only a plot against me, do you want to go after the queen? Wow. And suddenly someone comes and says, look, and Haman also made a gallows for Mordecai. And he's also decreeing death, which only the king can decree, only the king. You think you're the king. Hang Haman suddenly on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. They hang him. Now, let's connect the dots, as I said, about what's coming in a few days. You have to know that obviously the name of God appears many times in each book of the Torah. Obviously the Tanakh, the Torah, obviously the Tanakh, the 24 books of the Tanakh, including the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses. Obviously the Chumash, as it's called in Hebrew, but there's the Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, Torah, prophets, and the writings. That is to say, and here in the Megillat Esther, listen to this, it's impressive. The name of God does not appear even once. Only in a hinted way, but it doesn't appear explicitly. And here, this is the message about what will happen in a few days. And if you understand it, it's something truly incredible for your life. It can change your life in an incredible way. Listen carefully, because this requires some work from you to put the pieces together. Let me tell you that the word Megillat Esther in Hebrew, as we said, is like the scrolls, that is like the parchment of Queen Esther. That's on a literal level. Legalot, which is the same root in Hebrew as Megillat, means to reveal. Esther also comes from the word for hidden. What is hidden is revealed. What is hidden is revealed. In the Megillat Esther, what is hidden is revealed. The name of God is revealed without appearing. So I want to wrap up the class and explain what will happen in a few days. In a few days, it will be Purim. What is Purim? On Purim, we read the Megillat Esther, and we reveal what is hidden through what is, in quotes, profane. You should know that the Megillat Esther, is a bit like what I told you, obviously in my own words. They are historical events, political strategies, sucesos, events. Haman rises, then falls, this happened, that happened, and really in the end, what happened? On the 13th of Adar, the month of Adar, which is the day of the decree when the letters were sent, King Ahasuerus said, "It is not honorable for me to send a letter that goes against what I have already decreed." Imagine, that is, he didn't say don't attack the Jews. He said now a letter can be sent saying that the Jews can defend themselves. They can defend themselves. And what was the great miracle? On the 13th of Adar, thank God, we Jews defended ourselves against the attack of many people, obviously. And what happened? Miraculously, we won. And all of it happened without any kind of miracle like the splitting of the Red Sea or the 10 plagues of Egypt. God orchestrated all the events through natural means. Esther is about to reveal what is hidden. So what happens in a few days? As we said, in a few days it's Purim. On Purim we read the Megillah. We read what I told you, the Megillah of Esther. We give gifts to friends. We invite. We help the poor with charity, with tzedakah, everything, tzedakah. Many very specific commandments. To read a Megillah, to listen to the Megillah, to invite, to make meals and give them to people in need or friends, and to give charity. That is very specific things. And this is where the union happens. The concrete, the so-called profane, is transformed into something very holy, as our sages explain the secrets of the Kabbalah. That the day of Purim, which is the 14th of Adar, except in Jerusalem, where it is the 15th of Adar, there are halachic issues, but basically the 14th of Adar is the day after the war, which took place on the 13th of Adar. The 14th of Adar is the day we rest and celebrate, basically, and then after that, during the Second Temple, Purim was also celebrated in the Second Temple, thank God. Basically, the 14th of Adar is the day Purim is celebrated. And what do we celebrate? Revealing God from the simplest things. And that's what I want to tell you, what's going to happen in a few days. In a few days. Why do I say in a few days? You have to know that each holiday, the people of Israel basically hide the essence of the holiday. For example, Pesach, Passover, is the essence of the exodus, of slavery, of freedom hidden. For example, Shabbat, the day of Shabbat, every Saturday is the day on which we glimpse the creation of God. We rest, we have festive meals with the family, we read the Torah, we study Torah. Basically, the essence of the day, when God does not work on Saturday, that is the essence of Saturday. I'll give you some examples. Purim, our sages explain, the light of Purim surpasses many other incredible holidays. For example, look at the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement is called Yom HaKippurim. Yom HaKippurim, they say. Our sages explain that the Day of Atonement comes close to Purim in the spiritual power that it has. Therefore, we must know that Purim is not a holiday with those prohibitions. For example, lighting a fire or doing certain activities that are prohibited, for example, on Shabbat or on other holidays. Right? Purim, it's a day when we can listen to music. Having guests, like inviting and taking a friend in the car, and eating and cooking. And as we said, and reading the Megillah, basically it's a normal day, in quotes, but with incredible holiness. In a few days, what we say in Hebrew will come down. In Spanish, it would be spirals in time, that connection. What happens every Purim, every 14th of Adar, or in Jerusalem on the 15th of Adar? Basically, it rises in that spiral over time, and that's what's going to happen in these next few days. You're going to have that energy, that essence in a few days. If you connect with that, you can basically understand and see it in every aspect of your daily life. Reveal what is hidden in the routine. Reveal God in your daily life. Reveal God in every flower you see in a park. Reveal God in every conversation you have with your best friend. Reveal God in your work, in your place of study, in your family. Reveal God in every aspect of your life, even in the smallest, the smallest, most everyday and routine detail in your life. Reveal God through what is hidden, that is Megillat Esther. Reveal what is hidden within the so-called natural. In fact, you should know that the word for nature in Hebrew is hateva. It has the same numerical value as the word Elohim, which is one of the two names of God. Therefore, you should know that God reveals himself in a hidden way in the nature that we see in our daily life. He reveals himself, but we are the ones who have to reveal him. Just like Purim, and that's what is going to happen in a few days. How to reveal God from within the natural, as we said, events and natural occurrences, but God is hidden in the details. And bringing the people of Israel their redemption, it's impressive. And that's how today we see the redemption of the Israeli people. Today we return to the land of Israel. The prophecies, for example, the prophet Amos, for example, several prophets who say that God will bring the people of Israel to their land. And we drink the wine and the land will bear fruit. All of that is written in the prophecies. And today it is happening. Today it is happening. It's impressive. The Red Sea did not part by natural means. There are planes and there are people who come to Israel and work, and high-tech and startups, all things that are, in quotes, natural, and God hides and reveals himself through the natural. But how do we reveal him? We reveal him. So that's good. I would love for you to write to me in the comments, what insights did you have? And if you like these videos, I want to invite you to be part of my Israel High community. What we do is reveal God through the everyday, through being, through goodness. What do we do in Israel High? Our organization, our community. We organize events for soldiers' families, or we hold gatherings, or we also offer online courses for members of the community. And you can write to me on WhatsApp and I can answer your questions. That is, you have a connection with me, a connection with Israel. If you like the idea, I warmly invite you to write the word community here. Well, there's also a link here in the comments. And if you want, I'll see you in the comments. Will you tell me what you think? Success and blessings. Purim Sameach.